Joining me now is Garry Carr, who will fight February the 8th for the next New England Fights promotion when he takes on Austin Hamilton. Garry, how are you?
I'm good.
Nice to talk to you. We talked at some of the events here previously, but happy to have you on the show here for the first time. I know Christmas and New Year's just passed. Did you have to, be very, very strict with what you were eating, or did you get to indulge a little bit and eat some fat food?
Actually, for this particular fight is out of my normal weight class. My understanding is Austin Hamilton's last fight was at 175, and I'm a 155er. So to get the two of us together in a cage, we both compromised down to, or for him down to 165, and for me up to 165. So this is my walk around weight. So I'm very comfortable.
Okay. And so normally you said 165 is what you walk around at. How difficult is that cut for you to get down to lightweight?
It's actually not difficult at all. We've got great coaches. Actually, our fight team manager, Jesse Erickson, had a plan and printed us all off copies of it. And we follow the plan. It's guaranteed. It's not as difficult as I would imagine in the beginning. And quite frankly, just like all the other training that we do here at CMBJJ, before my first fight even, I practiced the weight cut so that there was going to be no surprises.
Yeah, well, clearly things are going well for you. You're 2-1 now. You're going in for your fourth fight here for the New England Fights promotion. Very excited to see you step back into the cage. I can see you're right at the gym right now. You just finished training. How has this camp been thus far?
This camp has been awesome. It's unbelievable. I can't tell you how honored I am to be part of Team CMBJJ and being able to fight for New England Fights. We're going to have probably no less than 10 competitors at this event in all kinds of weight categories. Some are going to be, most of us going to be amateurs. We have actually 3 new amateurs fighting this time around, which I am super excited with because I've been here for 4 years now, and a lot of these guys are new, and it's their first fight, and I've trained with them since day one, and I've watched them from just coming in off the street to getting to a point where the manager said, yeah, you're ready, let's do this, and found them an opponent, and they'll be stepping into the cage for the first time. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. And super excited, and particularly this fight, as in the last fight, our fight team manager is going to be in the cage as well. So I love that guy to death, and I'm honored to be on the same card with him always.
Yeah, I'm very excited to see the Viking step back into the cage. He's got a tough matchup ahead of him. Very well could be the fight of the night. Can't wait for that one. Who are the 3 fighters that will be making their debut for CMBJJ?
So we have Dustin Carrier. And I'm pretty sure he's going to be in the 170 weight category. I'm not totally sure of that. We have Tim, what's Tim's last name?
Murray.
Tim Murray. And I think he's going to be a 145er. Mm-hmm. And we have another gentleman, Hannon. And I think he's going to be 135. Mm-hmm.
So have you been kind of playing the role as the veteran, a guy that's been in there, been in the cage a few times to talk to these young fighters as to what they can expect making their debut?
Yeah, we talk about it every time that we're together. You know, the types of things that there's all kinds of, as I'm sure you're aware in this game, all kinds of ups and downs, the bumps and the bruises, the highs and the lows. And, you know, if they're not doing their best, you know, we try to keep things positive here. And when they're doing great, we praise that and say, yo, make it your fight. And that's what's going to happen.
I'd like to talk about your last fight against Clifford Redman. I believe that was in June of last year, if I'm not mistaken, NEF 39. I rewatched the fight earlier today, and it looked like he clipped you with a big overhand right early on there in the first round, but you ate it pretty well. Your back was up against the cage, and then you just came forward firing. Were you stunned at all? Did that affect you, or did you feel like right in the fight throughout the duration?
Actually, the really strange thing about this game is I've been clipped a few times, and it's when you get hit, and even when you get hit hard, at least from my perspective, it hurts for just an instant, and then you just push right through it. I mean, I've not experienced anything in that cage ever in the 3 times that I fought that I haven't experienced here with my fight team. These guys are killers in here, and I don't expect any different this time around. I've been hit plenty hard here, and you know, we're not supposed to hit hard, but sometimes you get out of your zone and you do. And it's not an issue ever.
And so again, you ended up finishing Clifford there in the first round. It looked like the shot that dropped him was just a jab. Is that correct? And could you tell he was
Yeah.
hurt?
I have one of my teammates here with it. He's smiling over there because everybody tells me, "Oh, you got a good jab, Gary. You got a good jab. Get that jab out there." And when I watch the video, I can hear my corner coach saying, "Get that jab out there, Gary," because I guess that's where it all starts. And if I've got a good jab, and I did hurt him with that jab, I hit him several times with it. So.
Yeah, clearly it dropped him, and you were able to capitalize there and get the finish. So congratulations on that victory. I also want to talk about the fight previous to that. Brian Costco, only loss of your career. It was a doctor stoppage. I had a tough time seeing exactly why the doctor stopped that fight. Did you agree with the stoppage? And can you just kind of elaborate as to, I guess, what the doctor told you afterwards as to why it was stopped?
Yep. So when the referee stopped it and said that he wanted the doctor to look at it, I felt the connection. And to be honest with you, when I was in the cage, I thought it was a left coming down that hit me, but it felt like a headbutt. And I know that Brian Costco is a wrestler, and he did use his head a lot. Being right there, in the moment, I may have come up a little as he was coming down a little bit, but I do believe that it was a headbutt. I was told after the fight from two different people that I know, that I work with, that were in two totally different parts of the arena, told me that it was a headbutt. And it got me thinking, it felt like a headbutt because I get hit plenty with the gloves, and that feels a certain way. I have been headbutted here and cut in training 4 different times, and it felt exactly the same every time, and that's what it felt like. So my thinking is it was a headbutt. Certainly with the intensity of being in the cage, it's 10 times as worse, and that's what the coaches tell you. What if we do in training? When you get in the cage, it's 10 times as bad. And the doctor looked at it, and she decided to stop it. And I didn't like the idea, to be honest with you, and I think Brian Costco would tell you the same thing, that I was ready to continue, and he was ready to continue. We were both probably disappointed that we weren't able to keep going and see who was the better man beyond that point. But also, I have a great respect for my fight team manager, and when he came over and looked at it, he kind of leaned in and said, "Gary, it's pretty bad. That's a good call." So I have to go with that.
So it seems like maybe a rematch is inevitable. If you didn't like the stoppage and he didn't like it, you guys want to see who the better man is. Is that something that we can see down the line, a rematch?
I have an open mind to that. I think about that very thing from time to time, and I would not be opposed to it.
Okay, well, that's exciting. Something for us New England fight fans to look forward to. Now, Gary, you are 58 years old. You hold the record for not only the oldest man to step into the cage, but the oldest man to get a victory. I believe that was you were 57 years old, just about to be 58. You're now 58. First of all, wow. I mean, congratulations. You really don't see that nowadays. I mean, you're putting guys like Dan Henderson and Herschel Walker and all these guys that fight into their late 40s to shame, fighting into your late 50s. How did you get into this sport? How long did you train when you were younger? Just tell me a little bit about how you got into mixed martial arts.
Yeah, well, it's kind of a fluke, to be honest with you. And so here I am. I'm 58 years old. I can remember the start of the whole thing was I used to watch boxing when I was a teenager. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier and George Foreman, those guys. And I used to love to watch that. And then, high school got done with, went off to college, went into the world of work, and was self-employed for 10 years. And I'm sitting around one weekend flipping through the channels, and I see this UFC fight. And so I was like, oh, I'm going to watch this a little bit. Never seen it before. And Chuck Liddell was beating the snot out of somebody. And it's like, wow, UFC, Ultimate Fighter Challenge? Well, I guess so. And I was hooked on that. I couldn't watch enough of it. And it was like every weekend, if there was something on, I was watching. I was just blown away by, this is way beyond boxing. I mean, these guys are just unbelievable. Well, cut to a few years later, my girlfriend, Karen Henderson, knows Chris Young from Young's MMA personally. And she's like, well, next time we're in Bangor, she said, we'll stop in to see Chris, and, you can watch him train. And so between that time and the very next event happened to be in Lewiston, she bought me, big mistake on her part, Karen, if you're watching, she bought me a couple of tickets to see a live fight. And I was always happy enough to just sit on the couch with a cold beer and a bag of chips and watch the fights. But here I am in the stands. At the time I weighed 185 pounds, and I remember it like it was yesterday. It was in Lewiston, Maine, and I'm watching two guys going at it at 185. One of them was actually Ruben Redman. I can't remember the other guy's name, but I'm a big Ruben Redman fan. And one was better stand up, one was better on the ground. It went back and forth 3 rounds, and there was a declared winner. And I don't quite frankly remember who the winner was, but I was rooting for Ruben. And when they exited the cage, I looked at Karen and I said, with the right kind of training, I would step in there with either one of those guys. And she's like, oh boy, here we go. And then a few months later, I was at Young's MMA for 1 day and 1 day only. And she asked Chris, what do you think? Could he do this? And he said, absolutely. He's in good condition. It's just a matter of getting the right training. And a couple of months after that, I get a phone call from Chris Young, and he's wondering how far away I am from Lewiston. And I live in Poland Springs, so it's about a 20-minute drive. And he's like, I'm going to be there Wednesday evening at 6 if you want to come over. Great group of guys, and see what you think. And I've been here ever since.
Yeah, the rest is clearly history. What did you think was the most difficult part of mixed martial arts training? Was there a certain discipline that took you a little bit longer to get comfortable with?
I would say I'm not a quick study. I've seen a lot of people come in here since I started that it seems like, 6 to 8, maybe 12 months later, they're very good. And some of the guys that are going to be stepping in the cage are those guys. And it took me a lot longer. And I don't know if that's just my personality or if it's my age. I'm not as quick as these guys for sure, but I just think it's who I am. It takes me a little longer to learn things, but once I get them, I got them.
Is there a discipline that you like the most, that you like training? For me, I love boxing. That's my favorite discipline. I love hitting mitts. I love watching stand-up fighters. Is there a certain discipline that you really get excited about?
I love the no-gi jiu-jitsu. And I probably spend more time with the Muay Thai kickboxing just because we have more classes involved in that. But yeah, the grappling, the groundwork, I love that. There's just something about it, and I don't even know why.
Now, I understand your day job is you are a teacher. What grade do you teach?
I teach high school. I actually teach all grades of high school.
Okay. All right. And so what do the students there think of when they see you and hear about you stepping into the cage? I'm sure they don't want to mess with you. They probably treat you with the utmost respect.
I don't know if they necessarily do that, but I think it's probably no different with my students than it would be anybody else in my life anywhere. Some of them just wonder, how come you're doing that? Aren't you a little too old for that? And others are just so excited. In fact, I have one new student this year that very first day, he said, hey, Mr. Carr, he said, I hear you do MMA. And he said, is that true? And I'm like, yeah, I do. He's like, wow, that's awesome. So, he was excited about it. Others aren't necessarily excited about it. Some people don't even like the sport because it's just, it's a brutal sport. But, yeah, for the most part, the students are pretty interested. In fact, I have former students that go to my fights, and this one particular student that I just talked about, I may offer him a ticket to go if he's interested.
Oh, that's very cool. And I know for me personally, I feel like a lot of people that aren't hardcore fans, maybe even casual fans, have a wrong perception of MMA. They feel like it's blood sport or it's too brutal or whatnot. What do you tell some of those parents of kids or just anybody that talks to you about the sport, about all the benefits that come along with it? Because I feel like it teaches young people respect, it keeps them in shape, it keeps them out of trouble, and really gives them a good direction in their life.
Yep, for sure. And it's all the above that you just talked about. For me, I do feel like I have a height, and I've always had a large respect value to my life. But this has really gotten it to the next level. For the life of me, for two people, and I'll harken back to the first fight that I had with David Hart, that, here we went back and forth for a full round, toe to toe. And we both cracked each other. I did get around his neck and finish him. And here's a 25, 26-year-old kid that just got beat by a 56-year-old guy. And he was the first one to come over and give me a hug and congratulate me. So the respect that he showed me right then and there, I was just blown away by. And, he's a good friend. I don't see him very often. Typically only see him at the fights. But that's the level of respect that this game has. It's before the fight, it's during the fight, and even after the fight.
I know Central Maine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is one of the biggest gyms in the state of Maine. There's a lot of fighters that compete and train down there. Have you ever ran into an experience on the mats where maybe you're getting the better of someone in their 20s and they just can't take it? They maybe lose their cool. Have you had to deal with that? And if so, what was the outcome of it?
No, not really. Everybody here understands the philosophy, and a big part of our philosophy is that if you've been here for a while and you're a little better than the next guy, we're going to do our thing, okay? I'm going to try to get my moves and play my game. But at the same time, once I get to where I need to be, I don't have to finish anybody here. Mm-hmm. At that point, I become the teacher, right? Because I am a teacher, and I let that person work his way out. I might loosen up a little bit and see if he knows what to do next. And there are many times with really new people that I may talk somebody through something. Say, look, you're going to have to get up on your right hip and get an underhook. And then it becomes more clear to them, and they turn me over, and then I work out of that. So it works good for everybody.
Well, I will say, Garry, I know age is just a number, but you really are an inspiration. I feel like a lot of people here in the state of Maine look up to you. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm excited to see you step back into the cage. Before we dive into this fight, I do want to ask you, have you ever considered about what age you're going to hang it up and retire? I mean, are you going to fight till you're 70, or do you think you might call it quits a little bit before that?
Yeah, it's going to be way before that. I do have a number, and the only reason I have this number in my mind is because I'm going to say it was either just before or just after my first fight. And it might have been just after. One of my coaches said that he wanted to book me a fight when I turned 60. And I'm about a year and a half from that. So that doesn't seem like that far away. And I would probably do that. But I should say, because I am on camera now, that I do have a plan. The plan isn't necessarily to fight at 60, but it will continue probably until that point, unless I'm able to finish somebody in that cage in a very specific way. And I've already told my fight team manager, Jesse Erickson, also my mom and my girlfriend, that there's a certain finish that I would like to see. And if I can win in a cage in a very given way, that I will announce that night that will be my last fight.
Okay. So I'm guessing you're not going to share what specific
I'm not going to. Nope.
Okay. Fair enough.
Well, I've actually added a couple of things to that. I mean, I have one very specific way. There's a second way that I would probably go ahead and do the same thing, and a third way that is a maybe. I would only know if it happened if I felt it was right. My goals now, to be honest, when I first came to CMBJJ and I asked to be on the fight team, that I wanted to get a cage fight, my quote was that I wanted to do at least one cage fight. And it was great to win the first one, but all of a sudden, all right, so, I won that. Now what's next? So, and I am a very goal-oriented person, so I set some other goals, and I'd like to, I don't know. I'd like to continue as long as I can.
Okay, well, the first step in that comes February 8th against Austin Hamilton. Let's talk about that fight. There's not a whole lot of tape on him. He's only had one fight. He's 0-1. Most recently, he fought Nate White, as you alluded to earlier, at 175 pounds. Did you watch that fight? I'm sure you did. What did you think of the stoppage and overall Austin's performance?
Yep, I did watch that fight, and I've seen the video a few times. Quite frankly, now that I'm going to step in the cage with him, it would have been nice to have that go a little bit longer, just from my own personal interest, and see the kinds of things that he's capable of doing. Early stoppages, I don't know. It's I'm not a referee, and I don't have that experience or that knowledge base. I would never question anybody's reason to stop a fight. But the one thing I did pick up on him is that he seemed to have a lot of scramble. I mean, he did not seem to have any give up in his game whatsoever, and he was going to fight to the finish. So I admire that about him. I mean, that was great to see, and so we'll see it live.
Yeah, I'm sure you're expecting a very game opponent and a tough fight come fight night here. Without giving away your game plan, do you plan on going in there and maybe keeping it on the feet and showing your striking, or do you hope it goes to the ground? Do you want to showcase your improved BJJ skills?
And I'm glad you posed the question that way, when I was talking about my goals earlier, the one thing I left out was that a big part of my goals right now. So I've already had a couple of wins. I've gone way beyond my expectations from the very beginning. My goal structure now is always going to be when I step in that cage to win. But beyond that is to win and show the public what I've learned here at Central Maine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and hopefully inspire other people in their 50s, whether they're male or female, to, if you're thinking about doing this, get off the couch and do it. And it's still doable no matter what kind of shape you're in. These guys will whip you into shape and get you the training that you need. But I definitely want to show what I've learned here. And I've learned a lot more than what I've been able to show so far. So I'm going to be looking for opportunities to show the things that I'm good at.
Now, I'm not asking you to give me your best Conor McGregor impression here, but I do want you to give me a prediction as to how this fight is going to finish. How are you going to get your hand raised come fight night?
I'm hoping for, if I can't get a first round finish, I would like it to be a finish at least in the early stages of the second round. And it's probably going to be something on the ground.
Something great. Do you feel like ground game? Okay, well, that's always exciting. I love every aspect of MMA, whether it is stand up or it does go to the ground. One last question. Do you feel like you will be at a little bit of a size disadvantage here with your opponent Austin fighting up at 175, his last fight? Have you had a chance to size him up or be next to him? Do you feel like you guys are going to be comparable in size, or are you going to be the smaller, maybe faster guy in there?
I am probably going to be the smaller guy. I'm not sure I'm going to be the faster guy. Typically the younger guy is going to be faster, and it's a little counter, I think, from what all the other fighters have told me in the past, that you always want to be the bigger guy, and in this particular case I'm not going to be the bigger guy, and I'm okay with that. I'll step into the cage with anybody that my coaches say that I'm ready for. So it's game on.
Well, I'm very much looking forward to seeing you step back into the cage. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show for the first time, Garry. Before I let you go, anyone you'd like to thank or any sponsors you may have, the floor is yours.
Absolutely. So here I am. I'm Team CMBJJ, and I wore this specifically because on the back, and I hope I don't get out of camera, but so my fight name is G-Man, and Rocky Branch Builders has been my sponsor from day one, so I just wanted to put a shout out to them.
If you can stand up a little bit. Well, if you could stand up a little bit when you do that, we can see it. When you sat down, we couldn't see it.
Oh.
There you go. Perfect.
So this particular fight, Ben Brown isn't going to be able to sponsor me. However, I do have a sponsor. So I wore this shirt. I don't know if you can see my... Do I need to stand up for this one?
I can see Young Guns Service Center. Very
nice.
Young
Guns Service Center of Auburn, Maine. Jason Cooper's the owner. Tim Rule used to be the owner, and they're kind of working out a buyout process. And he also owns a Change of Seasons, which is a landscaping and general maintenance company. So he owns two different companies. So I'm going to have fight shirts available from both of those companies. And I'm excited because here I am. My last name is Carr, and I've got an automotive sponsor finally. So good news. You said about thanking people. From the bottom of my heart, I would like to thank every single member at Central Maine Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, anywhere from the oldest guy, which is probably me, to the youngest person. I mean, I've trained with 5, 6, 7, 8, and 10-year-olds, and everybody in between, particularly the fight team members. And I have rolled and sparred with each and every one of them, and I've helped to make some of them better, and they have all helped to make me the fighter that I am. I want to thank my coaches, particularly our fight team manager, who is the guy that books our fights. And he's always asking, when do you want to fight again? And he tries to find us somebody. I'd also like to thank New England Fights for having us. Just Matt Peterson and Nick DeSalvo, they're great. And without them, nobody'd be fighting in the cage. So big thanks out to everybody.